Hello, everyone. So, a couple of months ago, I did a live stream where I shared some of my thoughts on some of the very problematic tendencies or downright lies, I would say, about various people in the travel vlogging and blogging class when they come specifically to Israel. So, we're going to be doing now some reaction videos on some of those blogs. And today we have a Japanese vlogger who did a series about his beloved Palestine, and we're gonna go over some of the things that he said and did. Let's take a look.
Palestine, a name that often grabs headlines, usually for the wrong reasons, especially these days. I spent 3 weeks traveling through the West Bank in September and October of 2022, capturing my experiences in the Behind the Walls series on my channel. Now, I've rearranged and combined all those videos into one long travel documentary, so you can experience everything I saw, felt, and discovered throughout the entire trip, just as I did, from start to finish. Please know that this video was filmed before the current conflict between Israel and Hamas began, so the situation today might be a bit different from what you see here. However, I still hope that through this video, some of you will discover something new and gain fresh perspectives on the region that you don't usually see in the mainstream media.
Yeah, I wonder what those fresh perspectives will be.
Let's begin our exploration of the West Bank, starting with the most common gateway for tourists, Jerusalem.
Notice how when he says we're going to gain some fresh perspective, then naturally the only place you can gain any fresh perspective not talked about in the mainstream media is the West Bank, which is a place that is actually featured very, very heavily in the mainstream media. But, you know, let's see.
Being the spiritual center of Jewish, Muslim, and Christian religions, Jerusalem is the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Jerusalem is not the center of the Muslim religion. It's the third city of the Muslim religion. Mecca and Medina are the center of the Muslim religion. It is the center of the Jewish religion, though.
Since there is no airport in Palestine's territories, many tourists first must go to Jerusalem as a gateway to the West Bank, which is one of the two main Palestinian territories. I was going to Jerusalem directly from the airport on the Israel side by train. However, when I arrived there, it turned out that Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year's Day, had just begun, and therefore all of the public transportation was stopped. Luckily, I found a Sharut, or a shared taxi, to Jerusalem, and I had an interesting encounter with a Palestinian guy in the car. When I told him that I'm going into Palestinian territory on this trip, he just replied, "This country is Palestine, you are already there." I immediately regretted being so thoughtless to take him that. The countries and its territories are perceived in very different ways by many people here. He was so kind as to explain what the Palestinian lives are like on the way to Jerusalem.
Yeah, those houses are like natural Palestinian villages. Yeah. They don't use the street at all. There is like tunnels, there's the street for them. Yeah. So they can like go from this side to this side. Yeah. And sometimes they have to make another like very big round.
So when you cross the border, would you have like problems?
Like for me, I don't have problem when I pass through a checkpoint because I have a blue ID, but most of the people who live here don't have this blue ID. They have green ID.
I find this scene absolutely crazy. The guy gets off in the main airport in Israel, right? Has an Arab taxi driver, Palestinian or Israeli Palestinian, whatever you want to call him. And he says to him, "Oh, this isn't Israel, this is Palestine." And his first reaction is, "Oh, I'm sorry for being so insensitive because, people use different terminology in the region." And then goes on to say what a nice driver he was to explain to him all the Palestinian oppression supposedly that's going on there. Even though he himself said that I can cross the border into the other territories with no problem, yeah? Something that I can't do as a Jew, but he can do as an Arab. But just think about that for a second. Imagine you go to Ramallah, and you're in the center of Ramallah, and you take a taxi, and the taxi driver is Jewish, and he says, "Oh, by the way, all this is actually Israel. It's not Palestine." Wouldn't your first reaction be, well, that's not very compromising, isn't it? I mean, maybe if these two sides are fighting, and this guy's saying that all of this central area belongs to one side, then that's why there's no solution to the conflict, perhaps. I mean, he literally has the entire Israeli-Palestinian conflict in a nutshell right in front of his face, which is the Palestinians saying that the entire land is Palestine and not Israel. But he's so determined to do his series behind the wall, as he calls it, that it flew over his head, So, yeah, let's keep watching the video.
There are 3 types of identification cards used in Palestine that are given to each person depending on their place of birth. The West Bank ID and the Gaza ID, both in green casings, and the Israeli ID in a blue casing. While blue ID cards allow them to move somewhat freely around the different cities of Palestine, green ID holder travel is strictly limited.
So basically he's saying that you have different IDs in Palestine, right? So you have a green ID, which is the West Bank and Gaza of Palestine, and then you have a blue ID, which is the other parts of Palestine. So basically, if I'm a citizen of the state of Israel, I have a blue ID, which is a specific part of Palestine, not representing an actual sovereign nation. He's basically in that thing, he's kind of, the taxi driver says, "Oh, this is all Palestine, it's not Israel." And he says, "Oh, yeah, I understand that." And then he goes on to explain how any person who holds this Israeli citizenship has a blue ID in Palestine, This is just insanity.
You said you have a blue ID because you are born in Jerusalem? Okay.
There's some people of Gaza,
Yeah.
They can't get out of Gaza automatically.
They can't.
People who live here have a green ID. They cannot get out of here unless they get permission from the Israelis.
That sounds to me like complete nonsense. I've seen and met many Arabs in Israel who have a blue ID, who fly abroad. They don't need any special permission to fly abroad. You don't need some certificate in order to do that. Maybe they go through some more harsh security checks because of their names, their Arab names, and the security concerns with many Arabs in Israel having committed terror attacks in the past. But it's this idea that it's difficult if you're an Arab in Israel with a blue ID to leave Israel is, I think, just a complete lie. Like, I don't know how he's even saying something like that. And in Gaza also, yeah, before the war, they were able to cross into Egypt and other places pretty easily. When I was in Cairo in my trip to Egypt, which you should watch that video, Israeli Visits Egypt, I met a Gazan in Cairo who had traveled there many, many times without any problems. So I don't know who this taxi driver is, just a liar.
Not easy to get the permission.
Not easy to get the permission, no. Just go to the Ben Gurion airport.
1 hour, we arrived in Jerusalem's downtown.
Go to Ben Gurion airport, you'll see like hundreds of Arabs there with the blue IDs traveling abroad with no problem.
It was almost midnight, so I just checked into my hotel, ate instant noodles, and slept to be ready for the upcoming adventure.
Good job for the adventure.
This was the second day of Rosh Hashanah, and the downtown was very quiet because in addition to the stopped public transportation, most shops and restaurants were also closed. However, once I stepped into the old city, It almost looked like everything was working normally, and I was surrounded by the usual hustle and bustle.
Okay, old city a little bit.
It has its sights and sensations. There are definitely some moments in which I was able to feel the tension of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Ooh.
First
Tension.
of all, there were fully armed police and military all over the place. If you look up, you see a bunch of Israeli flags waving, and I also couldn't help noticing tons of surveillance cameras monitoring us, especially in the Muslim quarter.
So that was his tensions, right? Having a lot of soldiers and surveillance in a part of the old city that has had many, many shooting and stabbing attacks in the past, many of which I covered when I was working in the news, and the fact that there are Israeli flags.
Both Israelis and Palestinians claim Jerusalem as their capital. Although Israel has effective control of West and East Jerusalem that is home to the Old City, Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem has never been recognized internationally, except recently by the United States of America, when the former president Donald Trump announced the country's solidarity. Even though it's illegal under international law, Israel has built a dozen settlements, home to about 200,000 Jews in East Jerusalem. As a tourist, I didn't find it unsafe walking around the old city, but sometimes it was a little uncomfortable. I feel the most tense atmosphere at the Dome of the Rock, which is one of the oldest works of Islamic architecture built on the top of the Temple Mount in the old city.
Right. Dome of the Rock, built on top of the Temple Mount. That will be relevant later.
Usually, other religions' holy places are open to tourists all day, such as the Wailing Wall, which is the holiest place for the Jewish faith, and Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is one of the most special sites in Christianity. However, in order to access the Dome of the Rock, non-Muslim people are only allowed to enter through one gate during very specific times. There are other gates too, but they are all under the control of Israeli police and only Muslims are allowed in. I'm trying to go to the Dome of the Rock, and I've already found like 4 or 5 entrances, but the police didn't let me in, telling me that it's only for Muslim people. So I asked them where is the entrance for tourists, but everyone says different things. Some of them say, oh, you can find the entrance this way, but others say, oh, it's closed today. But some people say, oh, it opens at 1:30 or closed at 1:30. Somehow, the police guarding the site didn't even know when and where the tourists could go in, so I had a little difficulty finding the right entrance. One time, one of the gift shop staff touted to me on the street, so I asked him if he knew how to get to the Dome of the Rock. But then he suddenly got a cold attitude and only sharply said, I don't know, before walking away.
Oh, all these gates are locked. It's only for Muslims. The security guards don't know where I'm supposed to go. They're not letting me through. Yeah, all of that is just showing you the reality that that site, the Christian site, is open for everyone at all times. The Jewish site is open for everyone at all times, as you yourself said a second ago. But the Muslim site is only for Muslims and for everyone else during very specific times. And who enforces this discrimination? It's the Israeli security forces, the ones that you're kind of complaining about their presence there, because otherwise the Muslims are going to get very angry over the fact that people are visiting the site that they are claiming exclusive access over.
Eventually, I found the gate for tourists right outside of the Wailing Wall area.
Good job, Wes. You found the gate. As if it was so difficult. You see all the tourists, they're queuing up. They obviously didn't have the problems that you had.
I waited in line.
Very good.
But another weird thing happened there. Suddenly, a group of dozens of Jewish people cut in line right in front of our eyes, and started arguing with the staff.
Are they trying to block us?
Yeah. At first, we thought they tried to not let us in as a protest, but minutes later, we found out what they really came for. We managed to pass through the Jewish crowd and walked on the wooden walkway above the Wailing Wall leading to the Temple Mount.
So have you noticed this annoying thing with this vlogger that he takes a bunch of just generic footage of something basic, like a bunch of people waiting in a line, and then he adds his commentary and thoughts to that footage. They cut across us in line, they're trying to block us, and we see here, like, you just entered and that didn't happen. So what is that? Why do you keep, if that happened, why aren't you filming? Like, you're a blogger. Your job is to, do your job. Take out your camera and film and show what happened. This is how vlogging works. If it doesn't show up on camera, it's doesn't carry anywhere near the same weight as it does. So you keep explaining to us these things that are happening. You asked the people, he shouted at you, the security guard wasn't nice to you. Open your camera and film. Do your job.
The Temple Mount is the third holiest site for Muslims after Mecca and Medina. The Dome of the Rock is a shrine that contains a foundation stone and marks the spot where Muhammad ascended into heaven. Non-Muslims are not permitted to enter the Dome of the Rock or Al-Aqsa Mosque.
And why is that?
I was just walking around the open area and admiring the beautiful buildings when I heard voices of protesting Muslims. What they were seeing before them was a Jewish group marching while guarded by police.
Where from, sir?
I'm from Japan.
Really? What city?
I'm from Yokohama.
Yokohama.
You know Yokohama?
No, I know.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh, you've been to Japan before?
No, I read about Japan.
Oh wow, this is great.
I was spoken to by a Muslim guy, so I asked him what those Muslims were saying.
Allah Akbar means Allah great. Is the greatest. And we issue this Allahu Akbar Akbar because they get in here by force.
Oh what? Oh,
And
what are
they
they
are
doing?
just Zionists. And they are guarded by the Israeli policemen. They get in here by power, by force.
Yeah.
They are not allowed. This is a Muslim place. They should be.
What are these people doing?
This is the second day of their new year.
Yeah.
And they want to establish a new theory or a new narration that this is their own temple. We don't approve of it, but we don't have the power to prevent them.
Yeah.
As well as the site being significant to Muslims, the Temple Mount is also the holiest site in the Jewish religion.
Oh, thank you.
The-
But again, I mean, just look what happened here. First of all, those Jews who were supposedly trying to block him earlier were obviously not trying to block him. They were just visiting the Temple Mount, as we just saw. So when he was editing the video, he could have cut that section out, seeing that he was wrong in his stupid thought that he had when he was waiting in line. But the other thing is that he says in his narration, look, this is the holiest site in Judaism, or is a holy site in Judaism. This is where the temple was. And then a Palestinian guy comes to him and says, oh, they're trying to fake this new narrative that there was a temple here, when really there was no temple here, and this site is only for Muslims, and everyone is shouting Allahu Akbar as a bunch of Jews peacefully, guarded by a bunch of security guards, which they have, walk to the Temple Mount and do something, basically doing nothing. And the dude's just like, oh, well, yeah, It's like, again, he doesn't, he's so determined to do his behind the wall series of the Palestinian victimhood that when he's seeing people who are so uncompromising, so clear in their position, First with the guy that was right in the taxi who says it's all Palestine. Then you have this guy at the Temple Mount who says, oh, Jews are not allowed to come here. Jews are making things up, are inventing the narrative. They're entering by force, which they didn't enter by force. You just filmed that they didn't enter by force. They entered through the non-Muslim entrance gate. So within the framework of the discrimination in which Muslims can enter whenever they want and non-Muslims can enter during specific times. And you don't challenge it at all. You're just like, oh, this guy's so nice. He's talking to me. What we saw in this video is not at all painting a picture of the Palestinians wanting compromise with the Israelis. But if you look at the rest of this vlog, and we're not going to see the whole vlog because it's like an hour plus, it's all about how the Palestinians are the victims of the aggressive Jews and the aggressive Israelis. And I just find it funny because it's kind of like two people can see the exact same thing and interpret it in completely different ways, you know? If you're focused on making a video about the suffering of the Palestinians, as this guy is obviously from the beginning, it just flies over your head that someone is just casually telling you that essentially Israel doesn't exist, it all belongs to us. And what that might mean for how Israel is dealing with that situation, like by having significant security against attacks or to guard the people who visit the site as they scream Allahu Akbar. And he's like, what is Allahu Akbar? Explain to me. It means God is great. Also, when they were massacring people on October 7th, by the way, they were screaming Allahu Akbar every second, just so you know. You could say Allahu Akbar also in a peaceful context for sure, and I've seen that many times. But in this case, when those guys are going to the Temple Mount and they're screaming at them Allahu Akbar, it doesn't exactly have a peaceful context. So there you go. That's how you make a propaganda vlog video. Yeah, we're going to be doing more of these reviews soon, more commentary stuff, which I'm going to also talk about some of that transition that I've been doing in a later video. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this and see you next time. Bye-bye.